This is episode 61 of the Hybrid Coaching Podcast. In this episode, we're going to be answering some of your past questions, brushing up on threshold, and talking about what is the basis of our programming. We're also going to discuss JK, who's about to run the Sunshine Coast Marathon, and myself, who is heading to England for the Red Bull HYROX Coaches Camp at the F1 facility in Silverstone, where we will record our next episode. Let's make hybrid fitness work for you. How's it going today, JK?
Pretty good. I'm pretty good today, Anthony. Thank you very much. How about yourself?
I am good. I'm still up in Montana. Wonderful here. What's interesting about this episode that we're about to do is I haven't put up the last episode we did yet. I was just finishing editing it, which means that we don't have comments from that one yet. So we're still, the last comments and questions we have are still 2 episodes ago. So we know what we put out, but the world doesn't yet. So when they get this one, we're still 1 episode back. But I'd love to see in a week or 2 what else we get back from the episode we just recorded 2 days ago.
So for once, we're actually on the front foot, and
it's still been 2.5 weeks since we put out an episode, but we have 2 in the bank now with this one.
Yeah, exactly.
So everybody will get some. And then next week, hopefully we can find a time when I'm in the UK to record for an hour. That'd be great.
Yeah. Just quickly touch on that, Anthony. You're going to the UK on Friday or Saturday this week?
Yep. So I'm leaving Montana on Friday. I'm going to Las Vegas, where I had originally booked my flight out of, and I'm flying to London and then going from London to Silverstone, the F1 racetrack, the
cool.
Red Bull Center. Yeah, so the Red Bull Center that's in Silverstone there. And there is a HYROX coach Red Bull Coaches Camp Summit.
Cool.
Maybe 60 or 70 of us there. That was, I guess it was invite only, or some people applied to be invited. And we're going to have, they sent us the schedule. We're going to have networking opportunities with the other coaches in the space. We're going to have educational things out that they're going to do. We're going to have from Red Bull's sports performance coaches. And a little birdie told me that we are going to have a workout there where we actually run on the F1 track as
Awesome.
part of it.
That's cool.
So
that's cool.
I should have been training a little harder and do all that, but I don't know what the level of competitiveness is going to be there. So how hard are we actually working?
Yeah. Oh, it'll be exciting for you, mate, and I'm excited to hear how it all goes. So what's on the cards for today?
So today we're going to try to clean up some of the past questions and comments that we have. Going to go through some of those, see if we can get all of those done, as well as brush up anybody. If you haven't listened, it's been, I guess this is episode 61. So it's been more than double the amount of episodes since our last deep dive into threshold. So we want to do a brush up on threshold and what is threshold training for HYROX? What does it look like? And maybe dive a little bit into what does our programming look like, and what kind of systems and basic background do we use?
Perfect. I think most people that know me very well know that I love talking about threshold. So, and what's even better, I love talking about threshold with my coach, you, Anthony, who I did know and knew and did a little bit of it before working with you, but not as much as now. So, but first, a few questions or
Yeah, let's do those few questions first. And just so everybody knows, like when you get to threshold, like people have different ways of going about it too. Like there's the theory of the sports science that's behind it, and then there's like everybody likes to create their own system. So JK and I, we like actually we haven't talked about this. Maybe we have different approaches and different like how to determine your threshold type of stuff, but the training would end up being very similar in that aspect of like
gotcha.
how it's going about.
Yep.
Because there's always like, the piece of this is what's required, this is what you need, and then there's like
Hmm.
the coach's input based on experience and anecdotes and stuff.
Yep. But the
Um,
fundamentals are the same.
exactly. All right, so let's do the comments first and stuff. This one might take
Sure.
me a while. Which one do you want to go with first? Okay, we can start with this one. Great content from you guys. I found you after I signed up for my first HYROX in April this year, and I have listened to all your episodes now. Awesome, thank you. I also
Awesome. Yeah.
listen to a lot of other HYROX-based podcasts as I immerse myself into the sport. Somebody getting into the sport. Uh, that's pretty quick. April was just 3 months ago, maybe.
Hmm.
Uh, I particularly like when you talk about the history of HYROX, and I go back to try to watch those on YouTube. Our last episode, JK, was all about the history of HYROX, basically,
It
right? Like the
was. Yeah.
past
They're gonna love this
qualifications.
one.
They're gonna
Yeah.
load that one. Um, so this is the one after. All right. The only thing I have a question on is the Elite 12 qualification, and I have heard other podcasts reference a wall ball gate at the 2024 World Championships, but I don't understand what happened when I watched that back. Can you help explain it? Um, I mean, this is simple from my end. So the Elite 12 qualification, we just did an episode similar or talking about it. So the last episode, you can go listen to that. And for the 2024 World Championships, different opinions, I guess, on it, but basically it's nothing because if the wall ball, I assume they're talking about the women's race, where the counter, like the last Vivian and Viola got a no rep on their last rep, but they called back the wrong people. Um, Three women essentially crossed the line within 1 second of each other, Viola, Lauren, and Vivian. If the no reps at the wall balls hadn't happened, if there was no issue at the wall balls, the results would have been the same.
Yeah.
Simply because Viola crossed the line first there, and she had a 3 second penalty from leaving the ski erg early that was known and shown on the lap counter going around.
Yeah.
Lauren crossed the line like back to back with her, like immediately, and Vivian was less than a second behind. Viola's penalty back then was 3 seconds. So basically, if the wall balls hadn't happened, the results would have been the same. So nothing really happened with the wall balls. The end result was what they did is they just instead of like the whole back and forth with the wall balls, they just gave Viola and Vivian a 5 second penalty for no repping their last wall ball, plus Viola's 3 seconds from the ski erg, which gave Viola 8 seconds of penalty, Vivian 5 seconds. So it still ended up the order of those three going Lauren, Vivian,
Was.
Viola, and nobody else crossed the line in that time.
Yeah.
So Linda was the next one in. So yeah, I mean, I don't understand it when I hear that happen. I think it's just to take away from something else. But yeah, I think that one, nothing. And if you were curious about the Elite 12 qualification, I love that race, but it was basically, we talked about it in our last episode. It was the top 5 times men and women from that year, with actually, I think, one woman declined. That would have been Imke, um, plus one wild card. So Sam Briggs and Adam Klink were the wild cards, and they both got invited. Um, but they ended up placing Sam Briggs was fourth, which only four women finished the race, and Adam Klink was fifth, I believe. We talked about it
Yeah.
in the last episode, guys, if you want to go back and listen there. All right. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, sorry. Yes, the 2024 ladies finish, it looks a little bit confusing if you watch it, but it's actually, as you just said, it ends up being not because of the penalties beforehand. So yeah, if you're keen to and you're if you're interested in obviously the history and the major races that have gone before us, it's a great race to actually watch, and it's a bit of a hiccup. Or it looks a bit of it looks like a shambles at the end, but it technically isn't,
Yeah,
if
like
that makes
it had
sense.
no effect on anything.
No,
Uh,
no,
because
yeah,
no matter what, it would have ended up the same order.
the same anyway. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And when we were on site, it was there. And if you listen, I don't know, maybe I think it was Vivian at the finish line. She actually explained it really well at the finish line. I don't know if that was on the live stream or somewhere else, but she was on it because she
yeah,
had heard, she knew.
yeah.
Okay, so next question. Thank you for all the content, guys. It's so interesting, and it definitely helps me to understand the principles and how the body adaptations work. I did a lot of running so far, but never learned as interesting and important things. I love it. Thank you guys. Wish you the best for Worlds. Oh, this was just a comment from before Worlds. Okay. Thank you. We appreciate it. Thanks for listening. Um, yeah, I like getting the positive feedback. It's nice. I respond well to positive feedback.
Yeah.
Um, all right. I think we answered this one. Oh, no, this one's perfect. Actually, we'll do this one because it talks about threshold. Um, so we will do this one last.
Hmm.
Okay. Because that'll lead us right into our threshold. All right. Nice content as always. I wonder if somebody could elaborate on the difference between CrossFit as a sport and CrossFit as a methodology. Wasn't aware of this. All right. JK, I'm curious what your interpretation of this is first, and then I will help you there.
Yeah. How do I articulate this? CrossFit as a sport. Well, CrossFit is, oh, sorry, it started out as a methodology. And sorry, that might not be right, but I'm saying, in my eyes, there is CrossFit as the methodology, which is the way of training, and the method of training, versus like CrossFit. And I kind of like try to think about it from CrossFit as the methodology, and then CrossFit Games as the sport, and that's I guess the competitive side of the methodology. That's all it is. It's kind of like, okay, if you are a CrossFit um, member at a CrossFit gym, you have the ability to treat it competitively if you want to, and you can go down the route of going through the actual the open and then the semi-finals, etc., and that's the CrossFit game. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is that one's a competitive route, and that competitive route being trying to make the CrossFit Games is somewhat um, is trying to test all the CrossFit methodology components in the first place. Um, but CrossFit methodology is the backbone of the CrossFit Games as such. And there's opinion on whether or not there's some years that it's been more strength biased and endurance biased, whatever. But as a core, the CrossFit, like CrossFit as a methodology, um, stands so that the competitive side of things when it comes to the CrossFit Games and people that want to take it seriously know what to train for, or try to know what to train for. I don't know if I answered the question, but CrossFit methodology, um, is in my eyes the way that the CrossFit Games was started in the first place. I guess what's your thoughts on it, Anthony?
I'll just say fitness in 100 words to start with, and then we'll go through it. But basically, eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch and no sugar. Keep intake levels that will support exercise but not body fat. Practice and train major lifts, deadlift, clean, squat, presses, clean and jerk, and snatch. Similarly, master the basics of gymnastics, pull-ups, dips, rope climb, push-ups, sit-ups, presses to handstand, pirouettes, flips, splits, and holds, bike, run, swim, row, etc. Hard and fast, 5 or 6 days per week. Mix these elements in as many combinations and patterns as creativity will allow. Routine is the enemy. Keep workouts short and intense. Regularly learn and play new sports. Okay. So that was
That's right.
CrossFit's original, like CrossFit in 100 words. But they had the 10 physical skills as well. So cardiovascular respiratory endurance, stamina, strength, flexibility, power, coordination, agility, balance, and accuracy. Okay. So there were
Yep.
those ones as well. Um, but it was also, it's constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity. So like
Mm-hmm.
those are the types of things that CrossFit focuses on. But for primarily, it talks about like the three big ones would be like um, your physical skills, your all that in terms of like endurance and cardiovascular respiratory stamina. And then there's like your weightlifting, your strength training, your powers, like all that type of stuff. And then there's like your gymnastics skill and ability, right? So those are
Yep.
like the three pieces too. So CrossFit as a methodology was to keep people healthy, keep them moving, and to basically put somebody so they could be in the 80th percentile, above, like well above average in anything they tried, right?
Yep.
Well, when you start like fitness as like, oh, you try something, you test, you measure, you repeat. It's like, okay, something's measurable, and repeatable, right? So that was like the original basis for CrossFit methodology. And then when that happens, you start to get into like people get competitive. And it's like, oh, well, I bet you I can do this faster than you can do this. You
Yep.
know, you start getting into that movement. So like, I think the first CrossFit workout was posted in 2001 or 2000 on the website, and then the people would start to have competitions, and the first games was 2007 at
Yep.
the ranch in Aromas. Uh, so as people got more competitive, they're like, oh, let's let's do this. So as the sport evolved from it, it became more of like, what are we able to show? Like, what can you
Mm.
see? What visually looks good? Um, if you look at some of like the early games, they were doing the programming was kind of like much different, much more like what we're able to do, aligned with the methodology, and then it started to get into like, oh, this is what people like. This is like, oh, we need to go heavier. Oh, like, and the sport kind of turned away from the direct methodology and more into like, what's the hardest skill you can do? What's the heaviest
Yeah.
weights you can do? Uh, instead of like moving as fast as you could. So, like, the difference between the methodology and the sport is one is a competitive sport, programmed by a singular person, um,
Yeah.
versus the methodology was like health and keeping people well and getting you to be regularly learn and try new sports, like go
Yeah.
out there. Running was a lot more prevalent in the early days of CrossFit than it is now. Now it is much
Mm.
more like weightlifters that try to move fast, you know?
Yeah. Mm. It's funny because I've like ever since maybe I finished school 2010. I've been a consumer of CrossFit content and I love it. I just love watching people, and I think you're the same. I just love watching people work out. Right, have always, but the whole concept, and I'm like, and I'd love anyone else's opinion or yeah, like opinion on this. Like CrossFit has done wonders for um, just like like human beings, health and fitness purpose. Like I'll be the first to say that, and they claim that they came up with, or CrossFit has can claim that um, this is the way to get fitter. This is the way to be healthier for your life. But I challenge that to say, okay, like that's all well and good, but also, is it actually the best way? And I'm not asking that, there's no question here. It's, but when I like listen to a podcast on my runs and stuff, I always think, okay, like CrossFit has done really well, and I appreciate what they've done for the human race when it comes to fitness in general. However, is it the only, is it is it the way, or is there different ways? I think like when it comes to watching like the top tier CrossFit Games athletes, it's remarkable what they do and what they can do. But all I'm saying here is like, geez, like I wonder if there's another way to get, there's another, I don't know, methodology that you can get fitter, if that makes sense.
So just like CrossFit did not invent fitness. They didn't invent any of the things. They're doing something for time. They took Olympic lifting, maybe, like, but people would already do power cleans. They took Olympic lifting and brought it to the masses, which is great. I think everybody should be strong like that. Um, but, you know, people, we have been doing circuit training for years before this.
Yeah,
Tabatas for
yeah,
years before this. People were doing threshold bike stuff way before this. Like it's not new, but they did commercialize it. They did popularize it, and they did a lot by bringing it to the forefront so that people could see it. It's amazing that you can see these role models, especially female role models, um, being strong. Like my
yep,
daughter has somebody and people now that they can look up to for strength, and that is like, somebody that she can see moving forward. They have a role model for that.
yeah,
That's great. And I think I like CrossFit. I'm going to watch the CrossFit Games here in a
yeah,
couple days, right?
yep,
I think what they've done is a really, really good thing in terms of getting it out to more people. Um, but I like you said, or like the person asked here, I do think the games is separate from the original methodology, which is more about health and getting the general population moving.
yep. Agreed. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, I'm looking forward to watching the games as well,
Yeah, should
which
be
is in like
exciting.
a few days.
Do you have any predictions now that they've released some of the workouts? Maybe that'll be, well, I guess our next episode will be after the games happens.
Yeah, we can.
We can review the
Yeah,
games.
I don't have any predictions. I would. I am a fan. If I think about the the males field, I think it's an open sladder. Like sorry, open slate. Like I think there's probably four or five males that could win. Um, I'd love. I'm a big fan of Ricky Garrard and Jay Crouch, but I think some of the American boys could or the Canadian boys will be tough to beat as well.
Yeah. I got to brush up on it. I don't have a lot of info to speak offhand on it right now. So when I'm excited to watch it though. I'll watch
Yeah.
it when it starts. All right. That's good for CrossFit. Let's talk about this next comment we had or question. Hi, love listening to the show. My question is about threshold running. If I know my threshold pace, do I stick to that pace even if my heart rate is raising above my zone 4, but RPE feels okay?
Why don't you go first this time?
Okay. Uh, so it depends. First off,
Sorry, I because that's it depends.
yeah.
It depends.
So first off, threshold um is it's a state within your body. It's like where the lactate's building up in your blood. Lactate is an indicator of fatigue, not it's a correlates to indicate fatigue with the hydrogen ions. So that's like how you feel going it. I really like the idea of going off of feel. If your RPE feels good or your RPE doesn't feel good. Um, when we set our threshold paces after we get them measured or test them, right? The pace we set, I like to view that as like a maximum, as like you don't go above that pace.
Yeah.
So because you get a lot of benefit going right up to that pace, but if you start to work over that pace, then you uh, could be burning up, right? You get
Yeah.
getting too far into it. The same way that lactate's an indicator of fatigue, your heart rate is also, and like, unless you've had your zones perfectly measured before,
Mm.
I wouldn't say what your watch tells you is exactly right either. Uh,
Correct. Yeah.
so I wouldn't just base on that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what this person, if they have their zone four measured, if they know exactly what it is. Um, but the same thing applies. Heart rate is also an indicator. It is not like exactly what's happening within your systems. Now, additionally, what are you using to measure your heart rate? Are you using wrist-based? Because if you're using your wrist-based heart rate, it could be off. It could be taking your strides as an extra bump and bumping up your heart rate, which means
Yeah.
it'll tell you your heart rate's higher than it actually is. Um,
Yeah.
Also, when if you have like an armband or a chest strap, that would be more accurate. So you
Yeah.
want to use that. Additionally, there's other things that can affect your heart rate. If it's very hot or very humid, your heart rate will be elevated higher than what it
Hmm.
is, even if you're not feeling like you're running at an elevated rate. And the systems within your body may not be corresponding to that. Your heart rate could still be elevated. And finally, are you at altitude? When you go up to altitude, your heart rate's suppressed. So like if you have like, 5 to 10 beats suppression either way. So the real question here is like when you use something, whatever it is, like we've talked about this before, whenever you use an analytics tool to tell you what you're doing, you need to make sure it's accurate within that tool and consistently using the same thing,
For
right?
sure.
Don't be like, oh, heart rate one day, RPE the next, and cadence or pace or something like any other day. Um, I personally like to do, let's get our paces determined from a test, use
Hmm.
that as our maximums, and then go off of feel up to that point, right? Like JK,
I like it.
we know what your last threshold test came back as. We take you always below that, right?
Correct.
Like sometimes we'll creep up to it, but it's never going over it. And the point is like we are trying to get you sometimes you're LT1, like, hey, we got to raise this, we got to get your base, your aerobic, you got to be here. And then
Yep.
sometimes you'll be like, I'm gonna run a little faster, but it's still never going over the number we know not to go over.
Yeah. I think the
And it's based on
question,
feel, yeah.
I think the question here is like making sure you understand that threshold is not just one pace. I mean, it's understanding that you have it's a zone. And here's the thing, I talk to my athletes a lot about this. Understanding that zone is really important, and I'll use myself as an example, understanding my LT1 aerobic pace, or um, like roughly what that pace is, and then my anaerobic, the LT2, and always being in that zone. So, Anthony, just a quick one. Apart from a proper blood lactate test, how can you roughly estimate your LT1, which is your aerobic um, threshold pace, and then also your LT2, which is your anaerobic threshold pace?
So, what you can do here, and though it's obvious like people don't do this, you got to think of these as race paces, not training paces, right? So like not what I could do when I'm training, but what I would do in a race, like a good race, which JK, we're going to get the opportunity to basically test your thresholds this weekend because
Yep.
JK is running a marathon.
Yep.
Um, so in this marathon, you have the pace that you're going to start out at, and you know like roughly where you want to finish, and you're either going to kick home or you're going to stay there, and hopefully you don't get to a point and die and have to slow down.
Yep.
Your marathon pace that we're going to use this as, we're going to assume, and I think I told you too, like, why don't you bring your lactate tester to
Yeah.
your marathon, and at the finish line, as soon as you're done, just take a sample and see where you're at.
I actually like when you asked me that the other day, I was like, okay, well, I'm actually going to do that.
Yeah.
So so yeah, but yeah, so um my test on the week, like sorry, my marathon on the weekend is pretty much a threshold test, right?
Hmm.
Um and on this topic, right, I think the most important thing for threshold is being okay to slow down if the perceived effort is higher than normal. I'll use myself as an example. I've gone from running my thresholds at a higher pace um, to then have to slow down because of for some reason something's going on and being okay with that. And that's the thing. Your threshold. You've spoken about this before, Anthony. Your threshold and your lactate buildup is different every day. We're not testing, we're not like pricking our finger at every interval to understand exactly what our lactate is. But it's a very good um, guide to understand your LT1, your aerobic, and then LT2, and just keeping in there. Now, note, I think what you just said before, Anthony, is really key. Your threshold, if you do it well, isn't your race pace. I'll give you an example. Before Glasgow, let's just talk like before my Glasgow race, I was running my normal traditional thresholds at 16.4, which is I think that's a 3:36 per kilometer pace. And my average run time at Glasgow was a 3:27. So it actually that tells you that your threshold isn't necessarily going to be your race pace. It just actually told us, Anthony, like told us that I was able to recover very well at running at 3:36 day in, day out, or every other day, to then be able to recover for that race and then actually uh, run slightly quicker.
Yep. And so part of that is like, well, we could do a little review of like what is LT1 and LT2. We just talked about your marathon is going to be measuring basically your aerobic threshold. And a little anecdote here, just to let you guys know how on this is I do threshold training when I train for marathons, half marathons and stuff. My last four, right, we'll say I did threshold training for one of them at a 9.1 miles per hour. I believe this was last year. Um, I did all my runs at 9.1 miles per hour and anywhere from 27 to 35 minutes per threshold session of on work. My half marathon, I ran a 129, hitting exactly 9.1 miles in the first hour.
There you go.
And I did that twice.
Yep.
Um, when I ran when I ran my marathon that I had the goal of sub 3 hours on, um, and I know it was downhill. It's not like the crazy downhill penalty one, but it is downhill. Uh, I I believe I was running at a 9 or a 9.0 mile per hour for training for that, and which is like a 640 mile. Um,
Yep. just under 4 minute pace.
Yeah.
No,
So
just over, I think.
just over. What is
I
what is that?
think it was like a 4:05 per
Is it
kilometer.
60 divided by 9 divided by 1.60934? So it's like a 408 per
Yeah,
kilometer. Um, so yeah, just over 4 minutes per kilometer. When I ran my marathon, I ended up running, I was training like half marathon pace, mostly threshold pace at like that rate. And so 640 to 638. And I ended up running my marathon at an average pace of like 649
there you
per
go.
month, which
Yep,
would be like what, 412. So I was
yep.
a little bit behind, but that was for a marathon, and I literally
That's
died.
for a marathon.
I
Yeah,
died at the
yeah, yeah.
last 10K. Like I
Yeah,
was done. Um, so and that happens. Like, but in HYROX and in DecaFit, you're not running your aerobic threshold. You usually run a little bit faster than your aerobic threshold, more towards your LT2,
yep.
which JK, I don't know if you want to say what your LT2 was. You can put it out there if you want. But that is your maximum pace that we talk about, right? And
Yeah.
that was the 17 plus.
Yeah, what well, sorry, like if you're talking about um my LT2 for like Glasgow, right? Or like
Yeah,
that example, what was it? Like
like
I think it was
17.4. And
yeah,
you were running
324
at
or
16, you were running at
326.
16.4 for most of your thresholds.
Yep.
When we measured you, you were like yeah, I think you were higher than that. You were like 17.6, 17.5. Like,
I think it was 324 per kilometer pace. And then that race I ran a 327 average. So
okay.
that just gives you an example that like for a HYROX race, I was still managing to be under my
Right. So,
LT2.
so you're going into this marathon, which is your aerobic threshold LT1, and you're trying to run it at, the pace that you decided that I think we talked about it. And if you can, what we're going to do is instead of testing over and over and over again, we're going to take this pace, average it out over your marathon, and say, there's your LT1. Um,
Mm,
if we want to test your LT2, what I would do is I would tell you to run a half marathon at race pace, like race a half marathon.
race, yeah, yeah.
And what I would do is I would take your fastest 1 hour wherever in that half marathon you ran. I would take your fastest hour, and that average pace would be uh,
Okay.
what you would
Yeah,
use.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. Cool, cool. Yeah. So, yeah, I'll try and get that blood lactate done straight after the marathon. I say I'll try and I will, because I'm sure there'll be a part of me that uh, will just want to see Georgie and actually no, wait, we've worked out. Just sorry, she's running the half marathon, and she starts an hour and 15 minutes after me. So we're technically going to hopefully finish in and around the same time as each other, which would be cool. So
He's going to run an hour 15 half marathon.
she's going to run, well, no, in and around, so to speak. I reckon she's going to do a 1 hour 32 half
Really?
marathon. So I'll be at the finish line, hopefully, um, to see her finish.
That's great.
But but yeah, the threshold, right? Like it's an interesting one to comprehend more than anything because Anthony, like how did you guys start like understanding threshold and putting it into practice? Because like for most people, like most people just want to go out and just run as fast as possible for their fast runs, for their threat, like for their um like race pace running. Like how did it all start with you guys?
Right. So, whoa, let's take this back. So I got really lucky, I think. I went to school at Oregon State University. I had some coaches in wrestling who were really, they were interested in like updating what the newest training was, right? Like one of my wrestling coaches was Troy Steiner, and he would be like, "Oh, let's try this, like this new thing that's come out in terms of training. Like, let's see if it works for you guys." Like, so I think I was lucky in that sense that like brushing up on new stuff was around a lot, and so I got exposed to. I didn't know it at the time. I got exposed to CrossFit style workouts. I got exposed
Right.
to threshold stuff. And additionally, since I was in the state of Oregon, even though he was a duck and not a beaver, I would watch the movies Pre and Without Limits and stuff. So Steve Prefontaine, and I was really
Yep.
interested in the way he ran. Like I love that mindset too of like you go as hard as you can the whole time and you don't just like go easy and then try to sprint finish. That like I just love like running it out of everybody because you start at a hard pace. I think that's fantastic. And that's what Steve Prefontaine was known for.
Yep.
Um, and so that was like I had a small introduction there. Another one was that was back when my mom and dad were running marathons and I was training for wrestling. My mom and dad were running marathons and Ironmans and stuff. So we had these like Runner's World magazines at our house, and
Yep.
I visited them one time, and I found an article on threshold training in one of them. I don't know, this was like 2011. Um,
Mm.
and so I had read about it then. And then when I graduated and I was done with wrestling, I got into running my own marathons and doing my own triathlons. And so I went back to Runner's World, and they used to have this like free template that you could download to train for something. And it wasn't exactly threshold training, but I started to get into it. And then I started reading more into like the online running forums and stuff. And I went back and read like the original how threshold training came about and all this stuff. And then when the Norwegians released their news articles, like that came about. Well, back in 2019, 2020, or basically then from like 2014, 2013 to 2019, it was all CrossFit. Like running had kind of gone by the wayside for me. I wish I would have kept up running, and I wish I would have known about threshold training because I think like machine threshold training and cycling threshold training for CrossFitters would like be amazing training,
Yeah.
and it could have really helped me. Um, but I went away from it, came back in like uh, 2021. So. Lauren's training before she was pregnant was a lot of easy runs and intensity all came through CrossFit, like WODs and stuff, and strength training. Afterwards, we had to like change up. So like in 2021, 2022, um, we got the Norwegian method of double threshold, and I read into that more. And I started like was like, okay, but we're not doing just running for HYROX. And her training had to change a little. So we're like, okay, what if like this isn't all out VO2 max training? So what if we like instituted this moderate level training twice a week? But instead of doing double run days, what if we did run in the morning, machine in the evening? And that's how it started. And I think Lauren, this was like 2022. I think Lauren at the end of that year, maybe early 2023, she went to she went on different podcasts and talked about it. I think one of the podcasts she went on to was The Running Public and talked about how we adapted this um, base threshold um, into our HYROX training, and then we started doing other things, and we adapted this double threshold where a traditional double threshold is just running, right? We'll go with the running one, not the cycling one. Just running. You have one day a week where you run in the morning, run in the evening. Everything else is easy. Run on a second day, and then you have like an X workout on a third day if you're doing three quality in 1 week.
Yeah.
We adapted that with our program and turned it into like running and machine work because the machines are still very important. Like if you go look at like what the combination of running and machine work is in terms of time wise of a HYROX race, it accounts for nearly 70% of the race. Those just
Yeah.
so
Just
obviously
hold on. Just state that again. Like 70% of most people's HYROX is running
yeah.
and
So here,
this.
just as an example, Hunter's world record, right?
Yep.
53:22. In that world record, his run plus rock zone, so running and rock zone, and his row and ski total. His run plus rock zone was 29:05. His row total was 3:57. It was the longest station of the race for him.
There you go. Yep.
And then his ski total was 3:37. That was like 1 second off the lunge total that it took. So those are the 2 to 3 longest stations of the race. So if you
Yep.
add up the run, row, ski, and rock zone total, it accounted for 36 minutes and 39 seconds of a 53-minute, 22-second race, which is
Yeah.
68.7% of the race. More than two-thirds of the race is that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why, like, when you talk about when we adapted our double threshold method in 2021, 2022, um, it, it's run and row, run and ski, and then
Yeah.
like our strength run, you know?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that's the basis of it. And so like we have that, and then we integrate the some lifting, GPP, skill work throughout the week around mostly that.
Yeah. Fundamentally, right, it all comes back to the mindset and the science behind threshold that allows, because we're not overreaching and overexerting, we are helping our body to recover so that we can do more. That's the essence of threshold, right? Or for us as HYROX athletes, and for us, like just an example, like you coaching me, Anthony, that's the purpose of what we're doing, right? Because we're still getting really quality work in on a Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, as we do. Sub maximal effort, 3 times a week, rinse and repeat, so that I can still be available to do everything else that I need to do to be as fit as possible for HYROX. That's the core message here, isn't it?
Yeah, and then you said exactly like sub-maximal that we do it. Like if you're just starting out, if you're a little bit new, just do it twice a week. Don't do it 3 times.
Three, yeah,
3 times quality, you can start out doing twice instead. You can do 3 times. You can do um, just make sure it's really sub-maximal. But that's like last week, or did we talk about it in the last episode, or was it 2 episodes ago? We had mentioned somebody asked a question about strides and why we do them.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Last
I would go
episode,
back
yeah,
and listen to that, uh,
yeah,
and that's how you can incorporate it. And that way, you're hitting basically everything.
mm, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
all right. Do you have anything else, JK, or is
I don't
that?
know. Uh, Not really. I'm glad we had a good discussion on threshold once again.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious as to what my LT1 will be after the weekend.
Yeah. Speaking of that, actually, let's go back. How do you determine your LT1 and LT2 outside of testing? Because we know, I think we've talked about threshold testing on here before and going and get a blood lactate test and how to read it. Um, what do you do, JK? What do you
Yeah,
base it off of?
so it depends on the athlete, but broadly, um, I'd like to get my athletes to do a 60-minute run test for to get their estimated LT1, and then either 30 or 30-minute or a 10K run test for an estimated LT2.
So you're a little shorter on the tests. Do you
I
adjust them
am,
at all, or
yeah.
is it?
It's more so, sorry, it's more so for, like everyone and anyone that has not necessarily had a big running background in the first place. So I want to make sure that they're not overworking, doing a half marathon straight out of the gate. 60 minutes is still a long time. So 60 minutes for that LT1. And then I say either a 30-minute or a 10K run test for that LT2.
I think that's really good, especially for like newer people that, like you just said, haven't had a broad running background, because
Yeah,
they would um, like that. That's gonna tell them what it is. I think as people get more experienced, not really experienced, but like dial in their numbers a little bit, like more closely when they can do an actual blood lactate instead of like estimates off of a
yeah,
run. I really think that's when they can like, oh, instead of running half an hour at this pace, I can do it for an hour now. Like
exactly.
there's a little bit more closely like that new half an hour pace is no longer my like what it is. And I think if you
Yeah,
were to measure them like blood lactate during that, you would start to see like, oh, now you're holding your levels, now you're holding this level.
for sure. Yeah. I think the 30-minute test is too short, but again, it's also dependent on the athlete. Um,
Well, I mean, if they're running a 5K in 30 minutes, it's probably right for them.
yeah,
You
true.
know, because I mean
Yeah.
that could be the pace that they'll hold for that long.
Yep.
Um, and
Yep.
if you're running a 10K in an hour, then like yeah, you're fit. You're fit enough to do this, to like progress too. But that is probably more appropriate. That's like a 6 minute K. That's like yeah, that's good race pace, and that's a
Yeah.
good starting. I think that's a good launching point too.
Yep. And I personally think I always say every 8 to 10 weeks is a good estimate, is a good timeline to retest, um, especially if you are going to be very routined and yeah, like routined with your threshold training. I don't
Yeah.
think you need to retest it um, any sooner than 8 weeks. What do you think?
Yeah, I usually do 3 months or 12 weeks.
Yeah,
Uh, 3 to 6 months
at least.
actually. Um, lots of like lots of people will tell you. So the pros will be testing all the time, so it doesn't matter. Like they don't just go out and retest. They're testing all the time to make sure they're at
Every
their
day.
levels, and so it'll be
Yeah,
they know their speed will increase and go up and down throughout. Those of us that aren't spending $50 every time just to work out uh,
yeah,
on the equipment, what we're doing is like we get a test, and then like 3 to 6 months later, get another one to help dial in those speeds
yeah,
and your paces and stuff.
yeah, yeah. How
You,
about on just quickly, Anthony? How about on how to test your thresholds for the ergs, the ski and the row? What's
oh,
your
so for
protocol?
those, depending on somebody's level, if you're an experienced, like if you've rode over 500,000 meters in your life, which takes time,
Yeah,
if you've rode, basically, if you've been rowing or skiing weekly for a year or two, um,
yeah,
then I would have you do a 10K for like four time. And that would be your threshold pace I would use. Without doing a blood lactate test. If you could do a blood lactate test on the rower or the skier, let's go for it. Uh,
perfect. Yeah,
if you're basing it off of heart rate, just remember your heart rate's not going to be this. It's not going to be the same zones. It's same zones, but it's not going to be the same rate. It's going to be like 10 to 15 beats lower than your running pace, uh,
yeah,
than your running threshold pace in terms of your heart rates. So I have people do a 10K. If you can't do a 10K, then you can do a 5K and just add. like 3 to 5 seconds per 500.
Yep.
And we'll just call it there until you can do a 10K. Uh, because like I've said before, I err on the side of slower is better. So I'm
Mm,
always going to err on like, I'd rather you be going slower and getting most of the benefit than going too fast and like burning out and missing
yeah.
it and missing the
Yeah.
intention. Um,
Mm,
so probably up into that. If all they could do is a 2K, like then we're just going to work on endurance anyway, and you're not going to be going fast.
yeah. 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 I'm exactly the same with that.
Yeah.
Um,
If
my
somebody really
yeah.
wants to get after it, they can do a 20-minute bike test to determine
Mm,
their power. You do the 20-minute bike test, and then you take like you assume that 20-minute test is like 95% of your hour of what you could hold for an hour. Or sorry, it's 100%, and you would take 95% and assume that uh that would be that'd be it.
yeah. 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 Cool. Anything else, Anthony?
No, I think I am good to go. How about you?
No. Good. Good here. Obviously, this will be live after my marathon, after you are over in the UK. So probably the next time we record, it'll be both experiences of the weekend. So safe travels, mate. Enjoy the Red Bull conference, and yeah, I'll be doing my thing on Sunday morning.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, mate.
Good luck in your marathon. Are you
Thank
calling me
you.
right before it?
I'll be calling you right before it. Yep.
Call me at the finish line.
Yep.
All
It'll
right.
probably be like midnight your time, but knowing you, you'll be up.
Yeah. All right.
All right, man.
All right. Thanks, JK.
See you, mate.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the Hybrid Coaching Podcast. If you'd like to reach out and get in contact with us, you can email the Hybrid Coaching Podcast at gmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram, either at the Hybrid Engine or at jk.jameskelly. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.